Hello all. Today we will study the concept gravity. So you can see from the images. So there is a boy which is very much interested of playing. So what he is doing, he is throwing a ball upwards and the ball is again and again coming downwards. So what is the reason? The reason behind it is gravity. So let us first understand the term by giving its proper definition. And so the definition is it is a natural phenomena by which all the things with mass or energy, including planets, stars, galaxies, and even light, are attracted to one another. So basically, gravity applies on all the things. So you can see from the images, and there is a sun, and there is an orbit, and all the planets are revolving around its orbit. So why it is happening? This is happening because there is a binding force which is attracted or given by the sun, which attracts and binds all the planets in the given orbit. So the sun's gravity is what holds our solar system together. Otherwise, imagine if the gravity force was not present, then what happens? All the planets could not be able to make the stationary orbits around the sun, and thus all the system collapses. So it is a gravity force. So the next question comes in our mind is that how did gravity force is being discovered, right? So this force is being discovered by the famous physicist, as we all know from the picture. I hope you can all identify and giving the name correctly. So he was like he is Sir Isaac Newton. So it was by him in 1687 the law of gravitation was discovered. So how the idea came into his mind? So there was a nowhere suddenly the idea drops into his mind. So there must be some kind of reason now that the idea came into his mind. So what was that reason? So now let us see that reason. So that reason is the thing when Sir Isaac Newton is sitting behind the apple tree and the apple falls suddenly on his head. Then he realized that the apple is falling downwards, and it figures out that it was the earth gravity that attract towards it. So it was the earth which was applying the gravity force which makes the apple fall towards the ground, right? So now, what was the subtle observations at that time by the Newton? So Newton observed that gravity acts everywhere in the universe, not just on the Earth. So basically, it does not imply that the gravity only acts on the Earth. No, it acts on whole of the universe, like, and it is also independent of various objects. Like it almost acts on all the objects. That it is the force that makes an apple fall to the ground. We have seen already. It is the force that keeps the moon orbiting around the earth. So we can see that we can see from our buildings or from our roofs that the moon is there present, which is actually revolving around the earth, and which makes the day and night. So what makes this moon around revolve around that earth orbit is this force, gravity, and it is the force that keeps all the planets in our solar system orbiting around the sun. So now let us see that the factors which affects the gravity. So we have totally understand the term gravity, not fully, but yeah, we have some kind of idea that actually it is a force, right? So now the force, if since it is a force, so it must be dependent on some kind of factors now, that how can we define, so how the gravity force changes the nature. So basically it depends on these two factors, that is mass and distance. So mass, we all know, is a measure of amount of matter in an object. So how does how much amount of matter is contained by an object determines its mass, and we often multiply by the factor of g to calculate its weights. Like we say that it is of 10 gram or 20 gram or 1 kilo or 2 kilo, then we can calculate it by the weight. So that weight also involves the mass. So here the SI unit of mass is the kilogram, and everything that has a mass is made up of matter. So the more mass an object has, the greater is gravitational force. So what we can conclude immediately from this statement, that the mass of an object is directly proportional to the gravitational force, because the sun's mass is so great it exerts a large gravitational force on the planets, right? If assume that it was something of a small kind of object, then it would have been the less force. But since the sun is so large, so big, it's so big, a gas balloon of the helium and other ions. So that is the sun, and because of this large size, because its mass is the amount of matter is more, that the force is so much more that it attracts all the planets. That is the one reason why the planets orbit the sun. Now let us see and understand how did the mass and distance actually functions. So that force of the gravity between, first of all, the main thing is to note here is that the force of gravity acts between all the objects, right? And now when the mass increases, the force of gravity increases. So let if we see, let us see then, if suppose that the mass increases, then um, the force of gravity also increases, right? And uh, if suppose the distance increases, then what will happen? So what we can conclude, that g is proportional to mass and g is inversely proportional to the distance. So if the mass increases, the force of the gravity increases, and if the distance increases, the force of the gravity decreases. So I hope I will be able to clear the concepts of the gravity. So let us conclude some statements, that the force of gravity acts between all the objects. This means that any two objects in the universe without exception attract each other. And what we can understand by this analogy is we defined as the universal gravitation. So I hope now you have a subtle idea of actually what is the gravity and how it behaves. So like how is the force and how it is acting on different objects, and how it's changing our lives. Thank you so much.